You know that feeling, right? That pit in your stomach when you have to negotiate something. You're bracing for a fight, a battle where someone's got to win and someone's got to lose. But what if? What if that whole picture is just wrong? Let's get into a much, much smarter way to do this, all based on some amazing work from the Harvard Negotiation Project. I mean, this quote just nails it, doesn't it? The second you start asking who's winning, you've already missed the point. You've lost. The real goal isn't to crush the other side. It's about figuring out how to solve a problem together. And honestly, just getting that one idea into your head, that's the first giant leap toward becoming great at this.
Okay, here's a super simple story that shows this perfectly. Picture this. Two kids are squabbling over a single orange. What's the obvious fix? Well, you just cut it in half, right? Fair's fair? But now both kids are only kind of happy. They each got half of what they wanted. But what if you try something different? What if you just ask them why they want the orange? Turns out one kid is hungry and wants to eat the fruit. The other, they're baking a cake and just need the peel for zest. Boom. All of a sudden, you have a perfect solution. One kid gets all the fruit, the other gets all the peel. Both are 100% happy.
And that right there is the whole heart of what we call principled negotiation. It's not about compromise. It's not about splitting things down the middle. It's about rolling up your sleeves, digging a little deeper, and finding that creative aha moment that actually works for everybody's real needs. All right, so how do we actually do this in the real world? Well, lucky for us, there's a super practical 4-step framework. You can think of it like a toolkit you can bring to any negotiation. Seriously, whether you're asking for a raise or just trying to figure out where to get dinner tonight. So here are the 4 big ideas. First, separate the people from the problem. Second, focus on interests, not positions. Third, invent options for mutual gain. And fourth, insist on using objective criteria. Let's dig into what each of these really means.
Okay, principle number 1. This one is so important. You have to remember you're dealing with a person, right? Not just some abstract problem. It's so easy to blur those lines. The real trick is to picture yourselves on the same side of the table, looking at the problem together. The mantra here is, be soft on the person, but hard on the problem.
And look, this isn't just some feel-good advice. It actually works. The data shows that just building a little bit of a relationship before you start talking business can boost your chances of success by, get this, up to 30%. So, get there a few minutes early, chat about their weekend. It's way easier to solve a tough problem with someone you have a connection with, even a small one, than with a total stranger. Which leads us right into principle number 2. This is about understanding the difference between a position and an interest. Your position is what you say you want. It's the tip of the iceberg. I want the window open, right? But your interest, that's the why behind it. It's what's hidden under the water. I need some fresh air. We get so stuck battling over these surface-level positions that we totally miss what's really going on underneath. There's a classic story that makes this crystal clear. 2 guys are in a library, arguing. One wants the window open, the other wants it closed. They're just locked in this back and forth, totally stuck. So the librarian comes over, and instead of trying to find a compromise, she just asks them why. Turns out, one guy wants fresh air, and the other just doesn't want a draft on his neck. The solution? Simple. She opens a window in the next room. See? Both interests are totally satisfied, and the whole argument just vanishes. And that brings us to principle number 3. So many of us go into a negotiation thinking there's a fixed pie, that if you get a bigger slice, mine has to be smaller. But that's the wrong way to look at it. The goal here is to work together to bake a much bigger pie. This is all about brainstorming, getting creative, and just blowing up the number of options on the table before you even think about making a decision. Now, for this to really work, you've got to get in a room together and just let the ideas fly. The number 1 rule is no judgment. Don't shoot anything down, don't criticize, just get every single possibility out there, no matter how crazy it sounds. You have to separate the act of inventing options from the act of deciding on one. And remember the orange story? A lot of the time, the most creative solutions are actually hidden right there in your differences. Okay, so you've brainstormed all these awesome new options. Now what? How do you pick one? That brings us to our final principle. Instead of this turning into a battle of who's more stubborn, you agree ahead of time on some kind of fair, independent standard. You know the classic trick for sharing a cake, right? One person cuts, and the other person gets to choose their piece first. That way, the person cutting is going to make that cut as fair as humanly possible. In a real-life negotiation, this could be anything from market value to what an expert thinks or even legal requirements. Let's say you're arguing about how deep to dig the foundations for a house. Instead of just going back and forth, you could say, hey, let's just use the official government safety standards. It completely changes the game. It's no longer me versus you. It becomes us trying to figure out what's fair.
Okay, I can hear you thinking it. This all sounds great, but what happens when the other person doesn't play fair? What about the dirty tricks? And that is a totally fair question. Not everybody is going to follow these rules. So let's talk about how to defend yourself. The key here is a really simple two-step move. First, you have to recognize the tactic for what it is. Are they playing good cop/bad cop? Did they stick you in a really uncomfortable chair on purpose? Once you see it, step 2 is to just calmly call it out. By bringing attention to the tactic, you show them you're not going to fall for it, and that usually makes them drop it.
But how you call it out is everything. This is not the time for an accusation. You don't want to make it a personal fight. So instead of saying, you deliberately sat me facing the sun, you focus on the problem. Something like, the sun is right in my eyes and it's pretty distracting. Maybe we could meet a bit later when it's not an issue. You're taking their tactic and reframing it as just another problem for you both to solve. All right, let's hit another big fear. What if they have all the leverage? You're negotiating with your boss or some huge corporation that seems to hold all the cards. How on earth do you protect yourself then? This is where one of the most powerful ideas in all of negotiation comes in. It's called your BATNA. That stands for Best Alternative to a Negotiated Agreement. But simply, it's your walkaway option. It's your plan B. See, your real power doesn't come from being tough or stubborn. It comes from having a really, really good alternative.
Just think about a salary negotiation. If you go in there with 0 other job offers, well, your BATNA is pretty weak. You kind of have to take whatever they're offering. But what if you walk in with 2 other fantastic job offers in your back pocket? Now your BATNA is incredibly strong. You have the freedom, the power to say, you know what, no thanks, and walk away. The lesson is, always know your BATNA and always be trying to make it stronger before you ever sit down at the table. Okay, one last what-if scenario. What do you do if they just ignored a problem entirely and start attacking you? They make it personal. Now, the natural reaction is to get defensive and attack right back, but that just gets you nowhere. There's a much smarter move. It's a technique called negotiation jujitsu. And just like in martial arts, the idea isn't to meet their force head-on. It's to sidestep their attack and use their own energy to redirect them back to the problem. So when they throw out some crazy aggressive position, don't argue with it. Ask them why they feel that way. If they attack your idea, don't get all defensive. Ask for their advice. Say, okay, what would you do if you were me? It's a brilliant way to disarm them and get them back to solving the problem with you. So after going through all these tactics and strategies, let's circle all the way back to the beginning. Because every single one of these tools is built on one simple core idea. Negotiation is not a competition. There's this great little story about a father and son just tossing a frisbee back and forth in a park. And some guy watching them walks up and asks, so, who's winning? But that question it completely misses the point of playing frisbee, right? The goal isn't to beat the other person. The goal is for both of you to make good throws and good catches, to keep the game going together. And that is just the perfect metaphor for what a good negotiation should be. So I'll just leave you with this to think about. The next time you find yourself in a disagreement, whether it's big or small, just try this. Pause for a second and ask why. Try to look past what people are saying they want and figure out what they actually need. You might be shocked to find a solution where everybody gets to walk away happy.